Hey friend, welcome back to Bible Tract Echoes. I'm Mike McCurry, your host. Thank you so much for joining me once again today. I've found oftentimes when you're confronted by big issues, by problems, the scope of which seem to overwhelm you, we want a silver bullet. Hopefully I'm not just speaking for myself here. We all want big solutions to big problems, right? But I was listening to someone I consider to be wise man, someone much smarter than me. And he was speaking about these large problems, these big issues that we confront. And he pointed out that oftentimes when you are confronted by, when you have to deal with these monumental issues, oftentimes the solutions, the way to fix them, they're made up of many small right decisions. But we don't want to hear that, right? If I'm overweight, I want to go running once. I want to eat kale once. I want to do one big thing. I want to go, if I'm not as smart as I should be, there's got to be one book I can read that'll fix all my problems, right? Maybe I can just download things. Well, maybe we will be able to download things to our brain in future, but we want to be able to fix things right now. We have an issue with our spouse. We've got a problem with somebody at work. We think they're just one time, we're just going to have one conversation. Let's go talk to a therapist or our pastor one time. It's going to fix everything. Oftentimes, it's not that simple. Actually, it very rarely, if ever, is. And I don't say that to be flippant. I don't say that to be denigrating. I don't say that to be discouraging. It's just the truth. Most of the time, if a problem has gone on long enough to become big, fixing it is not a matter of minutes. Think of it like building a home. You can build a home over months and months, but you can destroy it very quickly, can't you? The right amount of dynamite in the right place, and it can all come tumbling down. I told you yesterday I was going to share with you a few stories about people for whom their lives were changed by just quote-unquote little things. All this week we've been talking about the fact that little is much when God is in it. We shared the story from 2 Kings chapter 5 of a little maid, and how she so tenderly, how she so simply said two sentences. Her master, a man named Naaman, dealing with crippling leprosy, and I'm sure it would have taken his life, but God, in his mercy, allowed this little Hebrew girl to be brought into his household. She was brought captive, and she said, "Would God that my master were with the prophet. Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria," speaking about Elisha. Of course, we know Elisha, he did by count, by number, he did double the miracles that Elijah did. He was a big man in God's economy, right? Well, he was little in his own eyes, and maybe that's why God used him. But this little maid, between the ages of probably 7 and 14, God used her to make a little statement that made a massive impact. But in our day and time, thousands of years later, have there been similar occasions? Well, I think of a man named D.L. Moody, famous evangelist and preacher. But he wasn't always the D.L. Moody that you and I know. He was 18 years old. He was a boot salesman in his uncle's store in Boston many, many years ago. And his Sunday school teacher was a man named Mr. Kimball. And that man, Mr. Kimball, he had his heart set on. He had a desire to see D.L. Moody accept Christ. He prayed about the matter fervently. It was a burning desire for him, so much so that he didn't just pray, he took action and made an appointment to visit him at the boot store. He said, to use his own words, "I was determined to speak to him about Christ and about his soul," and started down to Holton's boot store. When I was nearly there, I began to wonder whether I ought to go in just then during business hours. I thought my call might embarrass the boy, and that when I went away, the other clerks would ask who I was and taunt him with my efforts in trying to make him a quote-unquote good boy. In the meantime, I had passed the store, and discovering this, I determined to make a dash for it and have it over at once. I found him in the back part of the building, wrapping up shoes. I went up to him at once, put my hand on his shoulder, and made what I felt afterwards, get this, what I felt afterwards was a very weak plea for Christ. I don't know just what words I used, nor could Mr. Moody tell. I simply told him of Christ's love for him, and the love Christ wanted in return. That was all there was. It seemed the young man was just ready for the light that then broke upon him. And there, in the back of that store in Boston, D.L. Moody gave himself and his life to Christ. 4 decades after, Mr. Moody was preaching in Boston, and he, in his own words, described the effect of his conversion upon his life. He said this, "I can almost throw a stone," I believe he was speaking from this spot where he is, to the spot where he found God, from Tremont to Temple, to the spot where I found God 40 years ago. I wish I could do something to lead some of you young men to that same God. He has been a million times better to me than I have been to him. I remember the morning on which I came out of my room after I had first trusted Christ. I thought the sun shone a good deal brighter than it ever had before. I thought it was just smiling upon me, and as I walked out upon Boston Common and heard the birds singing in the trees, I thought they were all singing to me. You know, I fell in love with the birds. I had never cared for them before. It seemed to me, though, I was in love with all creation. I had not a bitter feeling against any man, and I was ready to take all men to my heart. If a man has not the love of God shed abroad in his heart, he has not yet been regenerated. A little thing, not so little though, was it? For Mr. Kimball, scared as he might have been, to approach D.L. Moody and, by God's grace, see a life changed. But it wasn't just Mr. Moody, was it? Think about that great 19th century Englishman, pastor and evangelist, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. He was converted to Christ in the mid-1800s, January 6th, 1856. And in Spurgeon's own words, it happened like this. Get this. We're talking about little things. Mr. Spurgeon said, "I sometimes think I might have been in darkness and despair until now, had it not been for the goodness of God in sending a snowstorm one Sunday morning while I was going to a certain place of worship. When I could go no further, I turned a side street and came to a little primitive Methodist chapel. In that chapel, there may have been a dozen or 15 people. I had heard of the primitive Methodists, how they sang so loudly that they made people's heads ache. But that did not matter to me. I wanted to know how I might be saved, and if they could tell me that. I did not care how much they made my head ache. The minister did not come that morning. He was snowed in, I suppose. At last, a very thin-looking man, a shoemaker, a tailor, or something of that sort, went up into the pulpit to preach. Now, it is well that preachers should be instructed, but this man was really stupid. He was obliged to stick to his text for the simple reason that he had little else to say. The text was, "Look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth." Isaiah 45:22. He did not even pronounce the words rightly, but that did not matter. There was, I thought, a glimpse of hope for me in that text. The preacher began thus, "My dear friends, this is a very simple text indeed. It says, look. Now looking don't take a deal of pains. It ain't lifting your foot or your finger. It's just look. Well, a man needn't go to college to learn how to look. You may be the biggest fool, and yet you can look. A man needn't be worth 1,000 a year to be able to look. Anyone can look. Even a child can look. But then the text says, look unto me. Look unto me. Many of you are looking to yourselves, but it's no use looking there. You'll never find any comfort in yourselves. Some look to God the Father. No, look to him by and by. Jesus Christ says, look unto me. Some says we must wait for the Spirit's working. You have no business with that just now. Look to Christ. The text says, look unto me. Then a good man followed up his text in this way. Look unto me. I am sweating great drops of blood. Look unto me. I am hanging on the cross. Look unto me. I am dead and buried. Look unto me, I rise again. Look unto me, I ascend to heaven. Look unto me, I am sitting at the Father's right hand. O poor sinner, look unto me. Look unto me. When he had gone to about that length, the man had just spent about 10 minutes or so. He was at the end of his tether. Then he looked at me under the gallery, and I dare say, with so few present, he knew me to be a stranger, just fixing his eyes on me as if he knew all my heart. He said, "Young man, you look very miserable." Well, I did, but I had not been accustomed to have remarks made from the pulpit on my personal appearance before. However, it was a good blow struck right at home. He continued, "And you will always be miserable, miserable in life and miserable in death if you don't obey my text. But if you obey now, this moment, you will be saved." Then, lifting up his hands, he shouted, as only a primitive Methodist could do, "Young man, look to Jesus Christ. Look, look, look. You have nothing to do but to look and live." I saw at once the way of salvation. I know not what else he said. I did not take much notice of it. I was so possessed with that one thought. Like as when the brazen serpent was lifted up, the people only looked and were healed. So it was with me. I had been waiting to do 50 things, but when I heard that word, look, what a charming word it seemed to me. Oh, I looked until I could almost look my eyes away. There and then the cloud was gone. The darkness had rolled away, and that moment I saw the sun. And I could have risen that instant and sung with the most enthusiastic of them of the precious blood of Christ and the simple faith which looks alone to him. Oh, that somebody had told me this before. Trust Christ, and you will be saved. Little things, friend. Little man, Mr. Kimball, witness to D.L. Moody. A little church with just a little bit of people in it. D.L. Moody, thought to have led maybe over 1 million people to Christ during his time preaching. Spoke to, on average, sometimes 40 to 50,000 people per week, D.L. Moody did. Charles Spurgeon had over almost 15,000 people join his church, the Metropolitan Tabernacle. Preached to over 10 million people during his lifetime. But it started with little things. Friend, thank you so much for tuning into Bible Tract Echoes. Have a great day for His glory. I'm Mike McCurry, your host, and I pray you'll notice the fact that little is much when God is in it. God bless.
Thank you for joining us today for Bible Tract Echoes, a ministry of Bible Tracts Incorporated. If you would like to receive a free sample booklet of all of our tracts, you can contact us by calling 309-828-6888. That's 309-828-6888. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 130, Dwight, Illinois 60420. A faster way to contact us is to go to our website at BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. There you will find more information about our ministry and details on how you can support Bible Tracts Incorporated. Thanks for listening, and may the Lord richly bless you as you serve Him.